Part two with Clare Barber, and we sort of look ahead to this coming year. And I said already, the swimming pool thing we're doing in a separate item. Okay, challenges ahead. Over to you. I mean, what hot potatoes are you going to be dealing with in the next 12 months?
So I think that there's plenty across government. I think in the short term, one of the big challenges has been trying to support people through the cost of living challenges and do that in a way that's fair and making sure that support is getting to the right people at the right time. And I acknowledge that, as government, we won't always get that right. But what we need to make sure we're doing is listening, taking that feedback and looking at how we can get those schemes right. So we've got an energy efficiency scheme coming to Tynwald in December. That will be another piece of that jigsaw. About
so many of these things up to now haven't quite taken off, have they? You've got all these schemes, but no one seems to be taking them up, or they don't know about them. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, and maybe it's a blend of both. We've taken that feedback. We've looked with this scheme to try and make it easier. It will also be a scheme that will probably evolve as we go through.
Because it's all paperwork and form filling and you know what I mean? So something simpler.
And I think it's a difficult challenge, isn't it? Because you get rid of all the paperwork and form filling and then we'll be accused of giving money to the wrong people at the wrong time and not looking after the taxpayers' funding. So there's a balance.
Sure.
And I think that's really important. So a lot of the stuff with the new scheme will be about self-declaration rather than us going away, and then we'll do a sample check on it. I think that's important. So, it's absolutely, you sign a form and you say that you are entitled to that.
What comes under you, though? I mean, lagging of walls, is that you or is that somebody else?
So,
I mean, I don't understand where it all sits.
Energy policy sits within DEFRA.
Right, so it is you.
Yeah, so a lot of that work, and also we have building control and planning, which of course are invested through the Climate Change Act. There will be changes around requirements for the properties. So there is bits that fall under DEFRA, but there are also other bits that are very much DOI's remit, or DFE are doing work with the Green Living
lagging
Rights.
houses, that's so important for especially older properties. That is something that you are dealing with there.
Yeah, so in this scheme, this is just very immediate, easy to install things that for the majority of people would be able to install themselves.
Lagging.
So we're looking at things like radiator valve controls, we're looking at things like low efficiency light bulbs. And loft installation, which actually a lot of people can do.
Yes.
But we do also recognise there is an element in the scheme where we could provide support for people to have that installed. So for some people, if they meet certain criteria, they would be able to access additional funds to help get the installing done, because we recognise that people with different abilities may not be able to get up into their loft space and put that in. So that's a scheme that we've been working on. That will come to December, Tynwald, and we hope we'll get support. And equally, if we need to make changes as we go along, that's not something, I always think if something's not working, let's change it, let's get it right. But I think what's really important is we get the scheme out there and we access, get that to the right people.
Are you happy staying at DEFRA, or, I mean, there seems to be a sort of job going in health that comes up every few weeks, sort of thing. I mean, doesn't that, again, we talked about it, this is a fit that you would you be happy doing it, first of all? And if you were given it or offered it, would you take it?
I mean, I had 5 very happy years in health, it's fair to say. But at the minute, my preference, if I'm honest, would be to stay in DEFRA and finish some of the things I've started. But I'd say I was in health and home affairs for the previous.
Would you say yes to it then, if it was offered? I mean, this is just a potential. I mean, in other words, would you turn it down?
At the moment, it wouldn't be my choice because of the reasons I said earlier. I think it would provide a challenge around some of the conflict, because I am still actively, essentially a registered nurse. Yeah.
Other things you've been very active in was the Pride. That all seemed to collapse. And is that too strong a word? That you've all pulled out, the original organisers. Yeah. You won't be going ahead with this year. Oh, sorry, it's this year. The next one.
Yeah, 2023. Yeah, so we sat down as organisers and we decided that the time was right for our charity to close. It wasn't a decision we took lightly.
This is because of pushback from certain areas, I'm guessing, because there was criticism from certain people about the police, was it? I mean, that sort of thing?
I think there was a number of things, but I think what was actually very clear was that there was a good number of people within the community who had very clear views of what they wanted to do for Pride. And it's right that we step back and make that space available.
That must be quite desponding for you? It made you despondent because...
No, do you know what? I think we can look back and say there have been two great years we've used to get it off the ground.
Okay.
And absolutely, we're happy to talk with the people who are putting things together.
Is somebody going to do something?
There are definitely conversations happening. Okay. So
Okay. What else have you got planned this year? I mean, anything private members' bills or anything like that side of things?
No, I haven't got any private members' bills, although obviously Alex Allison's got the assisted dying, which I think...
You're very keen on that?
Yeah, so I've seconded the leave to introduce, and that's something I seconded previously as well when Alex has done work around that. It's something I'm passionate about. I think it's very important that we get it right. And that's around having those right safeguards in place. So the consultation, which is that next piece of the jigsaw, is going to be really important. I'd really encourage everyone to get involved with that.
You need support, obviously, of the members. I mean, he's given leave to go this far, but then you had a thing like Andrew Smith who seemed to change his mind, or it was unclear. There was a whole requisition meeting about the whole thing, wasn't there? I mean, do you think you've got the wherewithal in the Tynwald members to get this pushed further?
I think what we definitely have is a good number of people that are very understanding of the topic and want to proceed if we can get the safeguards right. And I think that's really important with this topic, and it's something that I know Alex has always talked about. It's a really important topic. It's a topic I've had on the doorstep. It's a topic I've heard raised with me, and it's a topic I've come across in my career as well. I mean, working in hospice, intensive care, A&E, it's something, and nursing homes for that matter, it is something that's come up. But as with everything, we've got to make sure that the protections are in the right places. We get the limits right as to where that would be introduced, and how it would happen. If we can get all those pieces of the jigsaw right, I do think there would be support for it.
Well, health is very much in your thing, and I have to ask you, like I've been asking quite a lot of people, ministers particularly, about the Dr Ranson thing. You've been fairly quiet on that, like most people have. I haven't heard much out of anybody, and it has been dealt with. I mean, she's in the right. It's this question now of fighting over the money, and of course we've got the side thing about Ex-Pol, we're still waiting to hear from Ex-Pol to exactly what was potentially, allegedly, manipulated, made up, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't play well, and I still don't understand why nobody's really talking about this yet. Or you holding your powder dry to do it later. How can you help us out with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chief Minister made a clear statement once the initial tribunal outcome was there, that actually clearly there were behaviours that were just not acceptable, and I think we have to reflect on that across the whole of government and understand that this isn't something where we tell people what they have to think. We have to listen, and it has to be very much a two-way conversation. I hope that people in DEFA will think that's how I'm operating. I want that to be how it is, but I think it will be interesting now to see some of those other elements. I think it's important that this tribunal is allowed to reach its complete end.
Absolutely. But we need things to happen. It's all being, I get this horrible feeling it's all being slowed down again, long grass, and we're not hearing these reports into what...
Yeah,
anyway.
I don't think so, and I hope not. I certainly, from my knowledge, all those things are carrying on. I think that we have had now also there's reporting going on into the Chief Secretary's role. There's the wider OHR review happening. So I think it's not fair to say nothing's happening. No. There are a number of things, and then we will be judged on how we respond to those and how we implement any recommendations. So
we have a look in there, in this one little part of government, and see the failings. Are you worried that this is corruption on a bigger scale that's going on, or you relax that we are on the right course? Because there is definitely feelings that things aren't right. I mean, this shouldn't have happened in the first place, admittedly. And if it hadn't been the wherewithal that she had with having a QC as the husband and all that, and whatever backing she had, it may have all just been, put to one side again.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that genuinely I think is a concern across a number of different things. Is it always possible for someone who doesn't have access to those resources to challenge?
Yeah.
And I think
whistleblowing, basically.
Whistleblowing, a number of things, to be honest.
Yeah.
Where you think your only option is going down a legal route to get that support. Yeah. And I hear people talk about that in general courts as well. Are you better off if you can afford the best advocate? Well, I think there has to be a question around how we make sure and comfort ourselves that there is equality in that, to make sure that people have the right to a fair trial, which is a core principle.
Just to wrap up, your score out of 10, please, for you, first of all.
For me.
Why is someone getting so giggly in a nervous way?
Well, no, I think in terms of time put in, it could be very high. But
and you're a mother and all this as well. You have to juggle everything, don't you? I mean,
do you know what? It is challenging, and that's not me looking for
no.
I put my name out, but you know, it is challenging. I've got 2 boys, 8 and 10. It keeps me pretty busy as well, because they just need to go be ferried around all over the place. They're not quite old enough to take themselves.
Okay. Enough of that. How are you going to vote? Give you some number.
I think I'm probably going to stick with about 7.5.
Okay. 7.5. Okay.
7.5.
And Mr. Cannon and his government, which you are part of course. How do you rate them?
Do you know what? I think it's been a really difficult time, and it was interesting because Steve Stanley, the chief exec in DEFA, we did the Man in Line the other day, and he commented on the word permacrisis, and it wasn't something I'd heard in that phrase actually, but I do think it does feel a little bit like we just leap, and not just the Isle of Man, the world in a minute, from problem to problem. So taking that into account, I'd probably stick again around 7.5. I think that
could do better, but things are outside your control.
Always things we can do better on. But actually, there are things that are outside our control. And what's really important is that we keep listening and acknowledge when we do get things wrong.